empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, 20 feet, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Morning Scoop. It is Friday, August 12th. It is the Friday of Hell Week for the Ohio State Buckeyes. They're in training camp. They've spent the last 5 nights in the Hyatt Place Hotel, and they've spent a lot of hours in the Woody Hayes. Their team is getting there about 6:30 in the morning, leaving about 9:30 at night. So if you do the math, it's a pretty long day, 16, 17-hour days for these guys. Never leaving the Woody Hayes. So it is a long, long stretch during Hell Week. Thankfully, they got to get through practice today, do some corrections, and then they have a humongous scrimmage on Saturday, which will be, it's basically like the first game of the season. A lot of these guys, or a lot of people that don't understand, like these scrimmages are basically like games. You play about 30, 40 plays. They're graded. There's jobs on the line based on your production, your performance. Nobody wants to lose a spot. I think a lot of guys, they have spots set up. There's a lot of competition, a lot of other spots. So it's going to be real interesting to see how this thing shakes out on Saturday. With that being said, as always, we are thankful for you guys. We appreciate you guys. Leave us a like. Let us know who you want to see win a spot on Saturday in the scrimmage. There are a lot of competition at the safety spots, linebacker, more for backup spots, I believe. The D line super competitive at defensive end, especially. First O line's pretty solid. Receiver, who's going to be the number 3 guy is going to be Julian Fleming. He's going to be a Mecca. It's just a crazily competitive spot right now. And we've got Mayan Williams battling Evan Pryor for that number 2 running back spot. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. So with that being said, I'm bringing my boy TJ. TJ, how are you tonight?
Good, man. Just got back from a concert. Just got to see some old 70s stoners. If anybody remembers, what was the one? Woodard. Oh gosh, the one with our guy Matthew McConaughey that he was in. Him and Ben Affleck and all those guys. One of the old classic movies, man. But it was a throwback. It was Foghat and Pat Travers band. Went up, spent a little time on Kent State's campus. Hey man, I don't know how much you guys get a chance to look outside around the MAC inside of the state of Ohio, but Sean Lewis has done some pretty good things up there, man. Kent State's got a nice little squad.
Oh yeah, they're projected. ESPN was talking about they're projected to factor into the playoff picture because they play Oklahoma, Georgia. They got a pretty rough schedule, honestly. I was stunned by that. But TJ, I want to talk to you a little bit about the first week of training camp. You're in the hotel. I mean, you've lived it, you've done it. Thankfully, you never have to do it again. It's Thursday night. You got the huge scrimmage on Saturday. I mean, you've been in pretty ferocious battles to win a starting spot or to keep a starting spot. What is it like on that Thursday night? How's your body feeling? What's your mindset going into Friday, and then knowing that you've got a war on Saturday to hold on to your spot?
Well, that movie I was talking about was Dazed and Confused, and Woodard said, all right. And that's how I was coming out on the field, man, because, I was ready to go, man. I was ready to pick on guys like Vernon Golston because I love the way Vernon Golston would come out there, and, he would dominate people in games, and Jay Richardson would get so mad because, he was working against Shafe, or he was probably doing something to you, beating you around the edge, and Vernon Golston – I would yell and be like, Vernon's not even that good. And Jay would amp him up. He's like, Vernon, you going to let TJ disrespect you like that in a Jersey scrimmage? Like, what's going on here? And I remember even when Tress, I think, hyped it up even more. And we had the whole crowd, I think. Wasn't there an autograph signing that we did before one of those big scrimmages? In 06, I think we did that.
Yeah.
And that was when you first shaved that mohawk into my head. So, and I had all my friends, they were coming out there to see me. Mary Jo and Mary Kate and all and all the twins. No, that was it was fun to be able to, it's really outside of inside drill and 101D, which at the end of practices. In 2 days, it turns into maybe like a 15, 20-minute drill. In the regular season, it's 2 5-minute periods. But it's a chance outside of those drills where that's really when we go live, other than one-on-one pass rush, to really put the whole thing together. Quarterback lineup, even though he's not live, clean handoffs, tackle to the ground. It's as close to game-like situations as we've seen in training camp.
Yeah, and that's something that, in our scrimmages, I mean, the running backs are live. The quarterbacks generally, if it's a guy like Troy or guys established, he's not live. But the running backs, like when we played, were tackled to the ground. So were the receivers, and it was a game. So I mean, there was no, because the only way you get a tackling is by tackling. It's not by. I mean, a lot of people are scared to tackle now. They want to thud up and tag the hip, and I think you can. I think you can do that, but like the old traditional way of doing it is tackling guys to the ground. And I don't think it hurts for running backs to get beat up a little bit and taken to the ground and get kind of callous a little bit, just because it's a tough sport. It's a long season. You're going to get some time off. Your body's never going to feel good basically until January when season's over. So you might as well just get after a little bit. And the scrimmages are always, like, for me, it was the kind of the big measuring stick to how you were from a physical and fundamental standpoint, especially in pass protection when you're an offensive lineman. Like, that's the thing you really
Yeah.
worry about. You don't really, I mean, run blocking is easy. It's not easy, but it's like, it's this, you never really lose your run blocking, but you can lose your pass blocking in a hurry. And that's usually the last thing that comes back for camp. And, guys usually struggle early in camp with pass pro because it's such an unnatural movement. So be interesting to see how Paris Johnson and Dewan do versus these ends that are really, they're coming. I mean, they're like werewolves right now. Like, I mean, Zach Harrison had a great day the other day. Jack Sawyer was the player of the game or the practice player of the day on Monday. JT Tuimoloau got one last week. I mean, they are really coming on. So it's treacherous. It's hard for these guys because I mean they got to be ready to go every day because these DNs will make you look terrible if you don't
Well, I
show up
mean,
today.
Zach, I think needs to step it up because there was so much attention on him heading into last year's camp, and I think he was the one guy defensively that came out and just kind of underperformed early in the season. Yeah, I think he picked it up a little bit as the season went on, but to me he wasn't what we thought we were going to get out of him coming into training camp. High praise. I think they were. I mean, they were even talking about some captainship type stuff, and that this would be, he would be able to set himself an NFL career off of last year. I think he's got a long way to go. I think he's got the ability to be able to do some pretty special things. For us, the unfortunate thing is the position that we play, we are always live. So we're like the only
Mm-hmm.
group out there that's always live. But like you
Yeah.
said, I think those backs, the type of pounding that you're going to take in the Big Ten, you know that it's not just going to take one back. I mean, even in the national championship year in 2002, Lydell Ross and Maurice Hall, they still spelled Maurice Claret. If you remember, Maurice was banged up a lot of that year.
Yeah.
So you're always going to need two or three dudes that can line up and carry the rock. And you're not always going to have a Zeke Elliott who's going to keep guys like Briante Dunn or Rod Smart on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to have the depth you have with Mayan Williams, you talked about Evan Pryor, Travion Henderson, those guys need to take a couple shots early on in camp. They need to have a couple live sessions. And you and I both know when they schedule 10 or 15 minutes for inside drill, that thing usually ends up going close to 25 because there's always plays that get run back. And
Mm-hmm.
it's for us offensively, we're at a disadvantage because the defense is pinning their ears back. They know what's going on.
Oh yeah.
So
Always.
inside drill can become tough. To me, that's really the true proving ground. That and one-on-one pass rush.
Yeah. For me, I always, I look at the physicality of practice and just, getting a second running back ready to go. I mean, obviously with Mayan, Mayan's a proven guy, started the first game last year against Minnesota. Evan Pryor is a guy that I thought was on transfer alert just because he had such a great spring game and he looked fantastic. And I think that the coaches were worried about him transferring just because he had such a good spring game. And if you're the number 3 guy and you got an All American in front of you, and then you have Mayan, who's probably an NFL draft pick, maybe a late round draft pick. I think that you want to get some touches because you got to get some touches to play in the league. And if you're watching this visually, I got the Rose Bowl just kind of running in the background. The interesting thing about this game is literally everybody's back except for Thayer and Ruckert. So we're watching some of this running game versus Utah, but I think
Right guard just got blown up. Right guard's
yeah.
about to get blown up right here. If you can't get any movement on the 3 technique right here, nothing on the 3 technique. 3 technique drives Paris back. Even though, I mean, they're lucky to get back to the line of scrimmage right there. That's all the right guard, man. And you know how hard that is when you're running that zone to be able to get that guy and to be able to really stop that inside hand. You can see there were some younger guys on that defense for Utah. I mean, a handful of freshmen were starting out there for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And,
mean,
and they're giving these guys fits, So what does that say about what we've heard about Paris and what's been going on in training camp? That Jack Sawyer's pushing him, and the Jack Sawyer's. Did you mention that he got training camp dude of the day or something?
yeah, on
So
Monday, Monday they give out the defense gives out the player of the day every day. They announce it like in the afternoon, and Jack Story had like 4 sacks on Monday and went
so he
crazy.
gets
And
so when Coach Tuck feeds the people, he gets to jump out there and get his ribs first for being
yeah,
defensive player of the day, and Paris Johnson has to go last. But honestly, this is as well as I do, this is a type of camp that is it's going hard. It's hard right now for Paris Johnson. There's a lot going on. You got these different matchups here, and Jack Sawyer's kind of kicking your butt a little bit. Maybe that's a good thing. I've always told people for years that the regular season for us was a reprieve because we were going against Bobby Carpenter, Anthony Schlegel, and AJ Hawk. Maybe the three best linebackers as a trio of all time. Not to mention you put Vern down there, you put Quinn Pitcock who's a first team All-American. If it wasn't for Quinn Pitcock and David Patterson, which we know they were both captains our senior year,
yeah,
those guys made Saturdays easy for me because they made spring ball, training camp, and practice throughout the week a living hell because they were the best two defensive tackles in the country.
yeah. Especially, I mean, Quinn was a monster. Oh my god.
Right.
I mean, we could never move him. Like he was he was impossible. I don't think I ever got a good double team on Quinn, and I could double team guys into orbit, but like with Quinn, it was such a pain. I used to hate going against him, and like there's some guys that once you get into them, they're gonna get launched, but he was just a guy that you couldn't move.
Right.
You
Like
know,
I knew that there was never going to be a defensive tackle that was going to shake me down because David Patterson, although he had probably the sloppiest body of all time, like first place, sloppiest body of all time at Ohio State, he had hip movement that he I mean it rivaled like dance moves. I mean, he was really quick on his feet for his size. He was very nimble. I mean, when he came out of Warrensville Heights, he was in your class, right? Wasn't that kind of the
oh,
forgotten
oh
class?
yeah,
With the
oh
forgotten
yeah,
class, you guys only
yeah.
had like 8 kids that survived out of like 24 or something?
Yeah, no, we had like 18 in our class, but after the first year, half of them were gone. I mean, it was bad. It
Right.
was like, we lost Lewis, Ira, Darius, Reggie Smith. Like, I mean,
And
it
then
was
and
a
then and
ton.
then Devin Jordan got injured. Kurt Lukens got injured, so that knocked two
Yeah.
guys out. I mean, but you and David Patterson, I mean, you guys were really the guys that kind of emerged from that class.
We had Dante, Ashton, Gonzo, me, and Dave were like it. That was
Right, right.
it
But
out of
after those
five.
guys in '05 graduated, I mean, really, that was as far as the true guys. It
Yeah.
was it was you and David. I mean, David played
Yeah.
right away. So he was graduating that year. You still had the extra year left afterwards, but
Yeah.
man, he those I dreaded those matchups in practice because I knew that he could shake me down on any given play, and you knew that everything was being recorded. That's the other thing, man. It's a proving ground out there. You step between those white lines, in practice, everything is recorded by that eye in the sky. So when you talk about position battles, they can be breaking stuff down as small as when you look at this all 22 tape and you're looking at these end zone shots. They're looking at the exact first step of DeJuan Jones or Paris Johnson coming out there. Are you taking the proper first steps? Are you allowing room for your tackle to get on that double team? There's so many different things they can look at when they come to assess you.
Yeah. And it's like, it's such a small line. Like when we were in a three-way battle to win the right tackle thing in '04, and neither of us wanted to start the year. It was it's
That's
hard.
tough.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Like neither of us started to start the year, but by the end of the year we were both starting. So it was that's the funny thing is like with all of this with all this stuff going on, like, a lot of these guys gotta remember, like, if you don't win the initial job, I mean, it's not like the competition's over after week one. Like, I mean, me and you, like, we kept grinding post training camp, and we played a really tough schedule in terms of guys that were good. And I think it's a lot like this year's schedule because I mean, we got to play Notre Dame, we got Wisconsin, we got Iowa, we got Penn State, like Michigan. I mean, there's gonna be guys getting hurt. There's gonna be guys that's gonna be ready to go. And you never know. I mean, and there's guys that can underperform. I mean, there's no guarantee that guys are going to keep their jobs this year if they don't perform well because guys want to play. I mean, guys have wanted to play more now than ever, and this is amazing catch by Emeka Ibuka is going to be unbelievable this year. But I don't know. What are your thoughts going forward on the receiving core? We'll talk a little bit of receiving core, the D line. You
You know,
talk Jaden
I
Ballard.
was lighting up the Facebook. I was lighting up the message board the other day on the receivers, man. I think that got a lot of action because when you start to talk about fourth and fifth, I mean, who's that guy going to be?
Oh, I wonder if Emeka should be third, but it might be interesting if they keep Julian Fleming there just because he's seniority thing. But plus I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see if the three guys that play the most snaps aren't Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Emeka Ibuka. That's going to be fascinating to
Right
see if they
now, to
Julian,
me, like
Jaden Fleming.
when you start going to a four wide receiver set or a empty set, are we going to see Jaden Ballard get in there? I know somebody mentioned on that thread a guy that was out of practice that said, Jaden Ballard had dropped a couple balls. I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't seen that. What I had heard over the offseason was that he put on some weight. He was in the weight room grinding out. I saw him. He came back up to Massillon. I got a chance to get eyes on him and talk to him a couple times. I've covered numerous games of his from his freshman year all the way through senior year in high school. I know what the kid's capable of. I saw what he did to your beloved Perry Panthers. It
Oh God,
wasn't
yeah.
even pretty. 2 years in a row, it was a total smoke show. Jaden Ballard's got the ability to stretch the top of the defense and do some things like his counterpart or his contemporary, Devin Smith, who came out of Massillon just a few years before. I would like to see him get his way into that fourth or fifth spot. Let's see what the young guy can do. And even if he's just a decoy or, everybody's two-manning, looking at Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you're looking at Marvin Harrison, what are you going to do about Jaden Ballard on the other side, one-on-one, 50 yards down the field, let C.J. Stroud chuck it up there? I think over-under, if you set it, I like Jaden Ballard with at least over 4 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that because I mean, CJ, you'd imagine he's probably going to throw for over 40 touchdowns. So,
Yeah,
if you go 10 to Marvin, 10 to Jackson, I mean, you still got 30 left after that. So, I mean, I think four for Jaden Ballard makes perfect sense, especially in blowout action. I mean, we got, and plus we've got 8 home games this year, which I think helps our offense because we don't have to travel and,
right.
hopefully it's just more comfortable. You don't have to worry about, I think that the offense at home, like we were a different team at home last year than we were on the road. Like Michigan didn't play as well. Obviously, it was cold and rainy that day, but at home we the game before that we crushed Purdue, crushed Michigan State, go play Michigan, get worked, and we're just a different outfit at home. It seemed like. Who what any other sleepers you got on offense? We talked about Evan Pryor, we talked about Mayan. Um, who do you think? What do you think that the split will be between Trey Henderson, Mayan, and Evan in terms of percentages? Do you think it's maybe 50% of the carries go to Trey, 40% go to Mayan, and 10% to Evan, or is it some sort of split similar to that?
Honestly, the way we saw things kind of shake out for Master Teague last year, where I don't know if there was health concerns or where he was at with his carries, but you just kind of expected that he would get more, and he didn't.
Yeah.
So to me, I could see them doing Maya Williams dirty. I think he deserves the carries,
Mm-hmm.
but you could see that number even drop down to maybe him only getting like 30% of those carries, just because,
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, what Evan Pryor did in spring. You can't
Yeah.
rule. I mean, they always say the position battles are open. Your position is never safe. We know that Trevion Henderson is going to be the guy, but Maya Williams is surely capable. We've seen him come into games, and he's capable of being a featured back. You love the way his short, squatty stature kind of reminds you of just a little bit larger version of Sproles. I mean, he kind of hides behind the defense or the offensive lineman. He has great explosion. Um, the things that Evan Pryor is going to bring to the table is a lot of people aren't used to him. So when he gets out there, he's a whole different look. And as you look at this tape, you're running it back, just the flow of the linebackers, bringing in a new tailback is enough for that cutback lane to open up right there. So if you're worried about an Evan Pryor speed getting around that right side, boom, your left tackle comes down, washes down that whole entire side, which we're expecting to see that happen from the left side this year other than maybe some struggles in camp with Jack Sawyer. But once you get into this Big Ten schedule, wash that down, bring in a new look Evan Pryor, and I think he steals at least 20 to 25% of the carries out of this running back room.
Yeah, this is a great run by Mayan here. This is one of Ryan Day's favorite formations. I love this formation. For people that are listening to this audibly, it's two receivers to the field, and then he likes to do a tight end wing deal with Mitch Rossi, who's kind of the fullback on the roster. He's a tight end fullback, but it's really hard to defend. It's kind of interesting they don't throw this year because it seems like they're outnumbered based on this motion because you basically have your two star wide receivers one up to the field. Um, and it's interesting because Jackson doesn't have his mouthpiece, and so I wonder if he knows that he's not live. But it's interesting because this is a tough look, man. I mean, you gotta either figure out if you want to put a safety overhang to the to your two All American wide receivers, or do you want to overload to the boundary where they can, basically crush you. I mean, it's interesting here because the center he looks for he's pushing forward, but then he looks back for some reason. I'm not sure why. Because it looks like he should be working front side like all day.
Listen, this is a lot like the play that was coming out of the opposite end zone earlier in this football game where Paris Johnson was just not able to get the reach block. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you have to be able to stretch that three technique without giving up the line of scrimmage. And every time we see him struggling with that. Now,
Yeah.
as you see right there, that's just them coming off the ball to the right, and that defense has no idea what's going on. And when you get one up like that, you're going to get record-setting numbers. Look, everybody flows to the right. You're selling the run. Boom, backdoor action with the pass. But to me, though, Paris Johnson, and even if it's other guards in there, if it's Matt Jones, whoever it is, we've had some conversations on the big boards this week. You have to be able to move the three technique. One thing we know about defenses inside of the Big Ten is their defensive tackle play is always pretty stellar.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately for me, I think some of the reason I got accolades my senior year is because almost every week we played, the defensive tackle was like the best guy on the defense. I mean, Turdell
Mm-hmm.
Bird or whatever his name was from Cincinnati led the country in sacks when I faced him. Mitch King was like the biggest thing with College Game Day coming to Iowa to see that defense, and we busted them up. Alan Branch with Michigan. I mean, my old nemesis Chris Norwell from
Ha
Illinois.
ha.
Chris Norwell.
Yeah. We should
you
have offered
know,
him, man. He was in my class. We should have offered Norwell. His brother is a really good
and
player.
if you remember, there was a really good defensive tackle. There two really good defensive tackles that year from Penn State. Jay Alford, he always gave me some fits, and then also Ed Johnson, who I believe Ed Johnson started a couple years with the Indianapolis Colts,
He
didn't he?
start he started the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So
He got arrested and got cut after that, but I mean he was an undrafted free agent that started in the Super Bowl. It was like crazy. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a Larry Johnson guy.
So
But
ultimately, what it comes down to is even though guard, most will probably say guard's the easiest position on the football field to play. You have got to be able to move the big defensive tackles inside of our conference, and really, you want to see those guys doing that when you come off the ball September 3rd against Notre Dame.
yeah, and this game is it's real interesting because it shows how valuable Mitch Rossi is because Mitch Rossi's playing. He's the only tight end in the game right now. They got Julian Fleming in motion, kind of an orbit motion. They don't get his hands down here. I mean, but it's interesting seeing 34 out there because he's kind of like the fullback type, but he plays a ton for us.
Refresh my memory. Did Ruckert sit this game out, or did Ruckert play this?
No. He was playing last snap or the snap before.
Okay.
So no,
Did we,
Rucker played the guys we lost were Nick Petit and
yeah,
the two receivers Wilson and Olave.
gotcha. Okay. So Nick was the only guy that opted out across the line,
Yeah,
including the tight ends. I gotcha.
yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that, man? I mean, is that something like if I would have opted out to play, like, would you have been salty at me?
I mean, it depends on the game and who we're playing. Like, I mean, if you're projected to be like a first or second round pick and you opt out, like I would never be mad at you. Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
can't be. You just got to get the next guy
it's a
ready to go
it's
because
a financial situation
well,
at
yeah. I
that
mean,
point.
if you're Chris Olave and you're gonna make $22 million or whatever the hell you made, it's like I mean, why would you risk tearing your ACL when all you got to do is just get through the combine healthy and run a good time? Like literally, like all those at this point, all those stand between Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson and making $20 million is running a good 40. As long
Yeah,
as they broke a
honestly, though,
four or
man. I mean,
five,
you just know I'm cut a little bit differently, and like, and I hope that there's still people that are out there that are cut like us, cut from the
yeah,
cloth of like a Jack Rose or a Keith Wakefield, where it's like toughness and attitude over all things, like not leaving any man behind. Like that's the kind of stuff that we grew up and were raised around. Like SEAL type training, no man left behind. You never leave a fallen soldier. You're always there for your brother. And to me, I'm not going to say the word of what it actually is, but to me, it's you're taking the soft, easy way out. I get the money, but there's something to be said about what's in your heart and wanting to go out there and dominate an opponent and finish a job. Finishing a job means you see it through. And I understand financially. That's why probably like a Ted Ginn never came back in for us in the Fiesta Bowl in the national championship. He's got money on the line. Why risk hurting your ankle anymore? But if you're
Yeah.
healthy, ready to go, come on, man. Let's line up and go win this game, man. We're only gonna have so many chances to ride out together.
Yeah, and I like I said, I'm not critical either way, just because like Jake Butt, he played in the Orange Bowl and tore his ACL, and he's out of the NFL, and he was a really, really, really good tight end. And he was
Yeah, he
with
was. You're right.
Pat
That's a
El-
good.
Pat
That's a good.
Pat El- Pat Elflein was his teammate. Pat Elflein's still playing. He's on year 7, and Jake Butt's is a commentator now, and he was a far superior prospect to Pat, and he tore his knee. He was never the same. He was on IR a couple years. He tore the ACL again. So again, I see both sides to it because I people can say with modern medicine, you're fine, but like Master Teague is a great example because he tore his Achilles tendon, and he was never the same. He was the guy that ran for 800 yards, as a freshman or whatever, or second year, or whatever it was, like 2 years ago, and he was really productive and really good. And I mean, he played a lot against Alabama and scored a touchdown against Alabama, but then he was never the same as he was that first year when he was really a load in 19. When he was backing up J.K. Dobbins. So he went pro this year. He didn't get a contract out of the draft. Went to rookie mini camp with 2 teams with the Bears and the Giants, and now he's with the Steelers in camp trying to make it. He had a nice day today, so I'm rooting for him. I'm sure he'll get a bunch of carries in their first preseason game, but he's a guy that if he doesn't tear his Achilles, he's probably drafted late. He's still a stiff guy. He's muscular. He's not super fluid, but he's a battering ram, and there's still a place for a guy like that on teams like New England and some of these teams that really like having a tough running back that can run. Because I mean, physically, his combine his pro day was as good as there's been. He ran like a 4.33 and did 28 reps and jumped 40 inches. I mean, it's like if you look at his numbers, you think he's a top 5 pick, but he just physically never. I don't know. He just never was the same after he tore his Achilles tendon.
Hey, you can just be like Willis McGahee, and you come in after Will Allen, completely shreds your knee, tears all 3 ligaments, goes through it like a hot knife through butter, and then all he did was come out to the combine, do his bench press, and go in the first round. So it's like, there's always hope, I guess.
Yeah, or like Frank Gore. I mean, Frank Gore played till
Right?
he's 38 years old, and he's he tore his knee like 3 times, and he'll
Freaking
be a
hundred times, man. I mean, Frank Gore was like a battering ram. Who would have thought that Frank Gore coming out of the U would end up being one of the greatest running backs to ever play in the NFL? To me, I didn't see that on him coming out of the U.
Nobody did. He was a third round pick. I mean, he's a
Crazy.
guy that he was. And I played with him in San Francisco, and he is an absolute monster. I mean, he is one of the best players I've ever been around. He's just an absolute beast in pass protection, tough as nails, just a tireless worker. He had like a Jerry Rice kind of work ethic. But Frank's the guy that he lasted for 16 seasons in the league as a running back, which is unheard of. And I mean, I think this is the first year that he's not in the league, like this year, and it's crazy, and he'll probably be a first ballot Hall of Famer because he's a top 6 or 7 rusher of all time. I think he
Okay,
passed.
so
I think
I'm gonna throw you a Hall of Fame question here, man. So just
sure.
recently, Tony Baselli got put into the Hall of Fame, and a lot of people felt that based off of his career, only playing 6 or 7 seasons, that they were just trying to get a Jacksonville Jaguar in there. Do you feel like a guy like Fred Taylor, who when he ended his career at Jacksonville, when he ended his career in the NFL, was one of the all-time best running backs to ever suit up in the league? Do you feel like a guy like Fred Taylor, even though albeit might not be a first ballot, deserves to maybe be in the Hall of Fame if a Tony Baselli is?
No, because I don't think they're the same caliber of player. I think Tony Baselli for a period was the best tackle in the league, and he's in the argument of the handful of best tackles of all time. I don't think Fred Taylor's in that discussion as a handful of best running backs. Like, I mean, if you really boil it down to the greatest tackles that ever lived, I mean, there's Munoz, Ogden, Walter Jones, Orlando, Baselli.
Ken.
Yeah, exactly. Some older guys, from back in the day, but there's about 8 or 9 names that
Dan
you could make.
Deerdorf, the pride of the Glen Golden Eagles, Dan Deerdorf.
Yeah, and again, like the thing that you always look at is like guys from that era. Like if I'm starting a team from any era and I can pick a tackle, like I mean, do you want to take Jo, who's 6'9", 350, or are you taking it?
Ogden and Pace.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and then you could make an argument for Baselli. I mean, Larry Allen played tackle for a couple years, like
Walter
but I mean,
Jones.
yeah, Walter. I mean, you could put Walter. I mean, if you took Ogden and Pace, I could take Baselli and Walter Jones and be just as happy. I mean, because
Right.
they're just in that rare air. Now, granted, his career was short, but to me, if you're in the Hall of Fame, you have to be in consideration for at some point in time in the league, you're either the best at the position or you're one of like the top 3 or 4. Like I mean, it's like a guy like Isaac Bruce made it in the Hall of Fame. He's a top 3 receiver at one point in the league. It's hard when you have Jerry Rice and Chris Carter in the league at the same time as you, but like Baselli, I mean, he made the All Decade team in the '90s. I mean, he was 6 or 7 time Pro Bowler. I mean, I think he deserves in just because he is one of the greatest tackles that ever lived. Now, there's a lot of guys that get in just because they played a long time or they had stats or whatever, but Baselli is just one of those guys where I mean, you got to put that guy in. I mean, he was too good.
This right guard, right tackle combo right here is what completely sells this play. When you watch Jones and Paris work this thing, they work it right up. Everybody's completely full. Number one steps up. He washes himself out. That guy misses the tackle. It's like it's really easy at that point. I mean, so many times it's just about creating the right look. And when you have so many talented wide receivers like we do, people are going to be flooded. They're going to have to come out of the box. And then you get a 5-on-5 or what even we used to look for. If we got 5 guys on the front side and there's one guy on the back side, you know what, Pitt? You know what, Beanie? You got to beat a guy. You're going to have to beat the backside linebacker, because we're going to get everybody else and we're going to take those numbers. I'm taking Beanie running over Jay Lehman any day of the week.
Yeah.
Let's see it happen.
Boom.
Except Jay Lehman trucked me and he put me in concussion protocol for one play. He hit me with the truck stick.
I honest to God don't even remember that. And was it in 06 when we sucked?
It was in 05, and the only points they scored was a safety. It was like 40-2 was the final in 05. And if you remember,
Really?
I had totaled my car like a week before against after the Minnesota game. And I just remember you had blocked down and I had pulled around you. It was the final series of the first half as we're getting ready to go in and punch in a touchdown. I think we're on like our own 30. And I had watched the play recently. You blocked down. Rory blocks down to the linebacker. And I pulled around you. And Jay Lehman and I just met like right in the middle. And dude, just hit and dropped.
Was I in the game? I only played 10 plays that game. I was on a pitch count. So you might have been playing with Boone.
I think you were still in, but maybe Booney was in. I forgot that you were on.
It probably was Boone because I would have been making fun of you if you got knocked out by Jay Lehman. How you get knocked out? You get knocked out by a single letter J.
Dude, he was eating them raw steaks and raw eggs like Rocky the night before.
He's gonna take that T off your jersey and put that T. He's gonna call himself TJ, and you're just gonna be J.
You're like, what's Jay Lehman do on Thursday night of game week? He's eating raw steak. He's actually slaughtering the cow in his backyard, and he's making the steak, dipping it in Champaign, Illinois. And man, no, but I'm telling you what, man, he was tough. And if I look back at it, I should have just dropped and cut him. But we went helmet to helmet. We both dropped. He actually went off the field for a play too, and I blacked out for a second. When I came to, I just crawled to the sideline. And all I did, I remember Tress standing over top of me, and he was like, "What the hell are you doing?" Because we're going in for a scoring drive. And so all of a sudden, Ben Person comes running in. And so I stand up, and I'm just like, "Trainer," and here comes Doug and Bob. And I just remember them dumping ice down the back of my cowboy collar, and I just started looking like Mean Tweety. I look like the Tweety monster. I went full Tweety monster.
Did you go back in? Did you really?
Pulled purse off. I'm completely concussed. Pulled purse out and finished the rest of the game. Don't remember one play that was ever called. All I remember is Chris Norwell and not moving him off the line of scrimmage when he was at 3 technique. As I'm over here telling Paris Johnson he needs to move the defensive tackle off the line of scrimmage.
Jeez. Norwell's tough, Norrell was the guy that we should have took, man. I'm telling you, he was way better than
6'8"
Brandon
with
Maupin.
arms
And
down, corn fed, arms down to his freaking to his kneecaps, and he could just extend offensive guards and tackles out, dude. He was strong. He was big. He presented a lot of challenges for an offensive guard.
it was amazing. He didn't get drafted, and then he was like with the Patriots for like a year, but then he got cancer, and now he's in coaching. It's like he lasted like a year. I think he got cancer when he was with the Patriots.
Well, he was the only guy I gave a sack up to my junior year. Nope, I gave up a sack to him and Jay All for my junior year, and the only sack I gave up my senior year was to Chris Norwell. So I gave one up to him my junior year and one up to him my senior year.
We were so bad. We
so
were
he's not
so
awful.
bad. The 06 game was like the worst game we ever. I mean, it was unbelievable how bad we were.
Yeah, every time we ran the ball, there was like five. You talk about running into a good look. Every time we ran right, there was like 10 guys over there and like one guy back to the left. And somehow when we Ohio'd it, they had like 12 guys on the left and like 3 guys on the right. Like, where are all these guys coming from?
They scouted us up a little bit, I think. Yeah,
So,
that was a nightmare. I mean, that was like, oh my god. I think we stunk it out. Then we played Michigan the next week.
we played Northwestern the next week and just tuned
got
them up.
you.
And everything.
Yeah, we whooped them. And that was out there, and then we played Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
So beat
interesting.
Brian Hartline scored a touchdown, I think, like the first week against Northern Illinois, and he didn't get another touchdown or even get like another pass thrown to him until Northwestern week, like the second to last game of the regular season. He gets 2 touchdowns, and that was when Brandon Mitchell had a big interception return for a touchdown, and we knew the next week we were playing for hardware.
Yeah, we're playing for Michigan and playing for all the marbles. Yeah, we're gonna break that game down. I think we're gonna have to sit and watch that one. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap this thing, man, because we've gone for about 30. So, but no, I appreciate you guys as always. This has been a nice little diatribe. We've been talking ball a little bit. So TJ, appreciate you. Got any closing remarks for Buckeye Nation and the Buckeye Scoop crew that are listening to this right now?
Strap up, Jersey scrimmage. Who wants scarlet? Who wants gray? Final scrimmage now. Final thoughts, man. It's been fun to break some of this stuff down. It's been fun to talk to the guys on the message boards. It's been fun to hear some of the questions, kind of talk about some different topics, some different subjects. You know, we were talking about some of the best defensive players ever. I got a couple more little categories, a couple more little tidbits I want to throw out for you guys. So keep an eye out, looking out for that on the message board and on the forums, and we'll keep talking to you guys down the line, man.
Appreciate you, brother. All right. I appreciate you guys tuning into this one. Again, in the comments, who do you want to see win a starting spot for the Buckeyes this Saturday? It's a huge day. The scrimmages are always like playing in games. So, again, guys, what do you want to see? Who do you want to see? Comment it for us. Leave us a like. Please subscribe to the channel. It really helps us immensely. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcasting platform, please leave us a 5-star review. It helps people find the podcast. It also pushes us up in the algorithms on those platforms as well. So that being said, thank you guys as always. Thank you, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Buckeye Scoop family. We appreciate you so much. You have a great Friday and have a great weekend. Appreciate you guys. Go Bucks.